Have you ever felt like someone is draining your energy? Malicious individuals often exhibit specific behaviors that, if not recognized early, can cause considerable harm in your life. In this video, we will reveal the 12 common behaviors of malicious people. Recognizing these signs is essential for protecting yourself and maintaining healthy relationships. If you're new here, please like the video and subscribe. Currently, only 15% of my audience is subscribed to the channel. So if this content has been helpful to you in any way, I encourage you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now, let's begin this transformative journey. First, constant manipulation. Have you ever felt like someone is subtly guiding you without your awareness? Welcome to the intriguing yet dangerous world of manipulation. The first red flag in identifying harmful individuals is manipulation. It's like playing chess, but your opponent changes the rules at will, and you don't even notice. That's how subtle manipulation can be. Dr. Harry Breaker, author of Who's Pulling Your Strings, defines manipulation as exerting hidden or indirect influence over someone to make them act in ways that serve the manipulator's interests. But how do you spot a manipulator in action? Watch out for these common tactics. Emotional guilt, saying things like, "If you really loved me, you would do this for me." Gaslighting, making you question your own reality. Victimhood, always portraying themselves as the victim in every situation. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus noted, it is not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Manipulators are masters at twisting our perceptions to suit their needs. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people with manipulative tendencies often have high levels of narcissism and Machiavellian traits, a dangerous combination. But don't worry, there are ways to protect yourself from manipulation. Set clear boundaries. A firm no can be your best defense. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, there's likely a good reason. Seek support. Talk to trusted friends to gain perspective. Psychologist George Simon advises that the best defense against manipulation is knowledge. So, congratulations, you're already taking the first step. Remember, not everyone who occasionally manipulates is malicious. We can all fall into these behaviors without realizing it. The key is to recognize them and strive to improve. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "Soon you will have forgotten everything. Soon everything will have forgotten you." So, don't fixate on manipulators, but stay vigilant and aware. 2. The art of never apologizing. Get ready for the second warning sign. The art of never apologizing. Do you know someone who insists they are always right, even when they're clearly wrong? This intriguing behavior is more common than you might think, and experts suggest it can signal deeper issues. Imagine life as a grand game of Monopoly. We all make mistakes and occasionally land on go to jail, but some players seem to believe they always have a get-out-of-jail-free card. These are the masters of never apologizing. Psychologist Robert N. Wright, a pioneer in the study of forgiveness, points out that an inability to apologize often stems from a fragile ego and a deep-seated fear of vulnerability. It's like these individuals are wearing emotional armor that stops them from admitting their mistakes. What does Stoic philosophy say about this? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, advises, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, if someone refuses to apologize to you, The wisest course of action is not to adopt the same behavior. How can you spot these individuals who avoid apologizing? Here are a few signs. They always have an excuse ready. They shift blame to others or external circumstances. They downplay the impact of their actions. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people with narcissistic tendencies are significantly less likely to offer genuine apologies. No surprise there, but all hope is not lost. If you find yourself dealing with someone like this, or if you see yourself in this description, consider these tips. Practice empathy. Try to understand why they struggle to apologize. Set clear boundaries. Don't let their refusal to apologize become an accepted norm. Remember, admitting our mistakes doesn't make us weak. It makes us human. So, the next time you find it difficult to say, "I'm sorry," ask yourself, do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? Sometimes, a simple apology can pave the way to healthier, more fulfilling relationships. 3. Lack of empathy. Now, let's discuss the next warning sign. Have you ever met someone who seems completely emotionless, as if they have a heart of stone? This brings us to the third indicator in our guide to identifying harmful individuals: a lack of empathy. This trait acts like an invisible barrier that isolates some people from the rest of humanity. Imagine living in a world where no one understands or feels your emotions. Scary, right? That's the reality for people who lack empathy. Psychologist Daniel Goleman defines empathy as the ability to emotionally connect with others. Without this connection, human interactions become cold and superficial. But how can you spot someone who lacks empathy? Here are a few signs to look out for. They show indifference to others' suffering. They struggle to understand perspectives different from their own. They often make insensitive comments without realizing their impact. A study by the University of Michigan found that empathy levels among college students have dropped by 40% in the last 30 years. It seems we are facing an epidemic of emotional disconnection. But all is not lost. The encouraging news is that empathy can be developed. Research suggests that practicing active listening and trying to see things from others' perspectives can significantly enhance our ability to empathize. What should you do if you encounter someone who seems as cold as ice? Here are a few strategies. Don't take it personally. Remember, their lack of empathy reflects more about them than it does about you. Don't expect immediate change. Empathy, like a muscle, takes time and practice to strengthen. Lead by example. Sometimes, showing empathy yourself can encourage others to do the same. Remember, we all have days when it's tough to empathize with others. The key is to acknowledge this and make a conscious effort to improve. As the Dalai Lama once said, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. And on the topic of practice, let's try a small exercise. The next time someone irritates you, take a moment to imagine what they might be going through in their life that could be causing their behavior. You might be surprised by what you learn. 4. Constant creation of conflicts. Now, let's move on to the fourth warning sign in identifying harmful individuals: the constant creation of conflicts. Have you ever felt like you're caught in a never-ending storm, with conflicts emerging from thin air? These malicious people are like directors of drama, stirring up trouble as if setting off fireworks on a calm night. Sometimes, they create conflict for their own amusement, Other times, it's a strategy to deflect attention from their own shortcomings. It's as if they have a radar for detecting peace and feel an urgent need to disrupt it. Imagine living in a house where the walls are always shaking. That's the toxic environment these individuals create. Peace and harmony become distant memories, replaced by a constant atmosphere of tension. As Ryan Holiday notes in his book, "The obstacle is the way, calm is contagious." Unfortunately, chaos is as well, and these individuals are like a virus of conflict, spreading discord in every interaction and relationship around them. So, how do you handle people like this? Here are a few strategies. Don't fuel the drama. Remember, conflict requires two parties. Don't engage. Practice stoic indifference. As Marcus Aurelius might say, choose not to be harmed, and you won't be. Seek out allies. Surround yourself with people who, like you, value peace. Recognizing these conflict creators is the first step toward protecting yourself. As Carl Jung wisely said, what you resist persists, what you accept transforms. Acknowledge that these people exist, but don't let their inner turmoil disrupt your external peace. 5. Constant lying. Imagine you are building a house. Each brick represents a truth, a shared experience, a moment of trust. Now, what if someone started replacing those bricks with balloons painted to look like bricks? Eventually, the entire structure would collapse. Lies are like those deceptive balloons. They may seem harmless or even useful at first, but over time, they erode the foundation of any relationship. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said that honesty is a fundamental virtue that supports the foundation of strong and healthy relationships. Picture Seneca at a family gathering where everyone is lying about who ate the last piece of cake. He would probably leave in philosophical protest. But in all seriousness, constant lying is more than just a bad habit. It's a red flag. Lies come in many forms, from small white lies to elaborate tales worthy of a spy thriller. The problem is that, over time, lying can become a second language for the liar, leaving you to decode a constantly shifting narrative. So would someone choose to live in this maze of deceit? Sometimes it's to manipulate, other times to conceal harmful behaviors, and occasionally simply because they've forgotten how to be honest. It's as if they've lost the manual for truth and are now improvising without guidance. How can you spot a compulsive liar? Here are a few signs. You've now reached the halfway point of this video. I want to commend you for striving to become a better version of yourself. I also kindly ask you to leave a comment, as it greatly supports my channel. If you're unsure what to comment, just type mind over body so I know you've made it this far. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that have helped me become who I am today and could help you cultivate a Stoic mindset. Inconsistencies in their stories. If you notice the details of their stories frequently change, you might be dealing with a liar. Avoiding eye contact. While not always the case, many people avoid direct eye contact when they're lying. Changes in body language. Look out for gestures like touching their nose, rubbing their neck, or crossing their arms. These can indicate discomfort when lying. Evasive answers. If someone often dodges your questions or avoids giving direct answers, they might be hiding something. Difficulty telling the story backward. A useful trick is to ask them to recount their story in reverse. Liars often struggle with this because they're fabricating details as they go. What can we do about it? First, be aware of the signs. If someone frequently changes their story, if the details don't add up, or if you have a persistent feeling that something is off, it's time to pay attention. This isn't about becoming a private investigator, but trusting your intuition. Second, and perhaps most importantly, focus on cultivating your own honesty. Be that reliable brick in the wall of truth. Not only will this help you feel better about yourself, but it will also encourage others to be more truthful. Remember, identifying someone who consistently lies isn't about judging them, it's about protecting yourself. It's like having an umbrella on a rainy day. You can't stop the rain, but you can avoid getting soaked. 6. Exaggerated reactions. Imagine being around someone who erupts with exaggerated reactions whenever they are criticized or contradicted. This behavior is like a red warning light, the sixth sign that you shouldn't ignore when identifying a potentially problematic person in your life. Think of a pressure cooker ready to burst. That's what it feels like to be with someone who overreacts to the slightest criticism. These exaggerated reactions are like emotional earthquakes that shake everything around them. Does this sound familiar? Why do some people respond so dramatically? The answer often lies deep within them. These emotional outbursts usually reflect deep-seated insecurities and fragile self-esteem. To them, any criticism feels like a direct attack on their identity. The ability to accept criticism with maturity is a sign of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. When someone can't handle criticism, it's as if they are stuck in a cycle of constant denial and defensiveness. Research from the University of Michigan shows that people who overreact to criticism tend to have lower levels of emotional well-being and experience more conflicts in their relationships. This highlights the importance of recognizing this behavior and dealing with it appropriately. Remember, a healthy relationship is based on open communication and the ability to accept constructive criticism. If you find yourself dealing with someone who has exaggerated reactions to criticism, it's crucial to establish clear boundaries and protect your own emotional well-being. 7. Protagonist syndrome. Have you ever met someone who seems convinced that the world revolves around them? Welcome to the intriguing and often frustrating world of protagonist syndrome. This phenomenon, closely linked to narcissism, is more common than you might think. Imagine life as a grand play. The person with protagonist syndrome always sees themselves as the lead character, relegating everyone else to the roles of supporting actors or mere extras in their grand production. Sounds fun, right? Well, not so much if you're one of those extras. From a psychological standpoint, narcissism is more than just self-love. Dr. C. Malin, a psychologist from Harvard, describes it as an addiction to feeling special. It's like these individuals have an unquenchable thirst for admiration and attention. History is filled with figures who likely suffered from this syndrome. Take Napoleon Bonaparte, for instance. He literally crowned himself emperor. Imagine the level of self-confidence that requires. Or consider Louis XIV of France, who famously declared, "I am the state." Clearly, these individuals were not lacking in self-esteem. So, how can you manage interactions with these people in your daily life? Here are some strategies. Set clear boundaries. People with protagonist syndrome often try to dominate your space. Don't be afraid to assert your limits. Don't inflate their ego. Avoid giving too much praise. A compliment now and then is fine, but don't make it a habit. Find common ground. Even narcissists can form meaningful connections if you identify shared interests. Remember, it's not about changing these people, spoiler alert. You probably can't, but about learning to navigate their turbulent waters without getting pulled under. And here's the interesting twist. We all have a little bit of the protagonist in us. Yes, even you. The next time you catch yourself thinking you're the center of the universe, take a moment to breathe and remember that while you're a star, you're part of a galaxy full of them. So, when you find yourself sharing the stage of life with someone who seems to want all the spotlight, take a deep breath, smile, and remember, they may think it's their show, but you get to choose your role in it. And who knows, being an extra might have its perks. At least you don't have as many lines to memorize. 8. The art of taking advantage of others. Have you ever felt like someone only reaches out when they need something from you? Let's explore the art of taking advantage of others, not to engage in it, but to recognize it and protect ourselves. Think of life as a giant chess game. Opportunists are the players who are always ready to sacrifice their pawns, that is, you, to advance their own goals. But don't worry, today we'll help you become a bishop, or better yet, a queen, able to see through their tactics. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "He who takes advantage of another's misfortune is not far from desiring it." And he was right. Opportunists often have a knack for spotting vulnerabilities and exploiting them without hesitation. Does this sound familiar? Someone who only calls when they need a favor. However, the world of opportunism isn't always so clear-cut. Sometimes we might all display opportunistic behaviors without even realizing it. The key lies in our intentions and how often we act this way. It's one thing to occasionally ask for help. So, how can we protect ourselves from these emotional opportunists without isolating ourselves from others? Here are some strategies. Value your time and energy. You are not obligated to be everyone's savior. Practice reciprocity. If someone always takes and never gives, it might be time to reevaluate the relationship. Surround yourself with those who value peace as much as you do. Remember, recognizing someone who constantly takes advantage is not about judging them, but about safeguarding your own well-being. It's like carrying an umbrella on a rainy day. You can't stop the rain, but you can prevent yourself from getting drenched. 9. Constant disregard for boundaries. Have you ever felt like your personal boundaries are treated with as much respect as a red light by an impatient driver? Well, friends, let's discuss the next warning sign in identifying harmful individuals: a constant lack of respect for boundaries. Imagine your personal space as your favorite garden. Now, what if someone decided to use it as their personal playground without your consent? Frustrating, right? That's exactly how it feels when someone continuously ignores your boundaries. Renowned psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The only path worth taking is the one that leads to being oneself." But how can we truly be ourselves if someone is constantly intruding on our space? Malicious people often see boundaries as challenges to overcome rather than lines to respect. They might invade your privacy, disregard your requests for space, or continue with behaviors you've clearly stated are unacceptable. It's as if they have a knack for ignoring social cues. But all is not lost. Here are some strategies to deal with those who invade your boundaries. Be clear and direct. Don't leave any room for misinterpretation. Be consistent. If you relent even once, it's like inviting a vampire into your home once inside. They're hard to remove. Practice self-care. Remember, while you can't control their actions, you can control how you respond. Psychologist Henry Cloud emphasizes boundaries define who we are and who we are not. So, the next time someone tries to trample over your personal garden, gently remind them that your flowers are not meant for trampling. 10. Constant criticism. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to be experts in criticizing others? Brace yourself, because that's our next red flag. This toxic habit can be more harmful than you might realize. Imagine being surrounded by people who only focus on your flaws. How would that make you feel? Probably not great. Psychologist John Gottman found that, in healthy relationships, there should be at least a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. When criticism exceeds this balance, it can seriously affect emotional well-being. Throughout my life, I've encountered classmates and acquaintances who were true masters of criticism. I chose to distance myself from them completely, and guess what? It was one of the best decisions I ever made. However, be careful not to confuse constructive criticism with toxic behavior. The key difference lies in the intention and frequency. Constructive criticism is meant to help, while constant criticism aims to hurt or control. Stoic philosopher Seneca advises, choose someone whose way of living, words, and even their face, which reflects their soul, you admire. In other words, surround yourself with people who bring you joy and encourage your growth. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that being constantly exposed to negativity can even impact physical health. So, it's not just your mood at risk, your overall well-being is at stake. 11. Lack of responsibility. Have you ever met someone who seems to have an excuse for everything? Imagine playing the game of life, but every time they land on a bad spot, instead of moving back, they blame the board or even the dog that walked by. That's how people who avoid taking responsibility behave. A lack of responsibility is like an escape artist's trick. These individuals can slip out of any difficult situation faster than a magician vanishing in a puff of smoke. They always have an excuse ready, as if they have an automatic justification generator in their mind. But why is this attitude so harmful? Think about building a house with someone who never admits to hammering in a crooked nail. In the end, you'll have a shaky structure and probably a lot of frustration. A lack of responsibility not only impacts the person who refuses to take it, but also everyone around them. It's like a virus that spreads through relationships, fostering an environment of distrust and resentment. How can you spot someone who avoids responsibility? Here are some signs. They always have an excuse ready. They blame others for their mistakes. They constantly see themselves as the victim. They change the subject when asked to take responsibility for their actions. If you know someone who often does these things, you might be dealing with a professional responsibility evader. But don't worry, not all is lost. If you recognize some of these behaviors in yourself, congratulations, recognition is the first step toward change. Remember, everyone makes mistakes. The key is in how we handle them. Responsibility is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So, the next time you're tempted to blame traffic for being late, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what can I do differently next time? 12. The pursuit of revenge or punishment. Have you ever met someone who can't let go of even the smallest slight. Today, we explore the final sign in our guide to identifying harmful individuals, the relentless pursuit of revenge or punishment. Imagine someone holding onto a grudge as if it were their most prized possession. These individuals struggle greatly with handling criticism or rejection. Instead of accepting feedback or respecting others' choices, they set out on a mission of retaliation that could rival an action movie plot. But be careful, it isn't always as obvious as a Hollywood villain. Sometimes it shows up in subtler ways, such as spreading rumors, sabotaging opportunities, or manipulating relationships. It's as if they have a radar for detecting offenses and an arsenal of negative responses ready to deploy. Interestingly, studies have shown that people who are vengeful often experience high levels of stress and low emotional well-being. It's like drinking poison and expecting it to harm the other person. The key to dealing with these individuals is to remain calm and avoid feeding their desire for conflict. Remember, their behavior reflects more about them than it does about you. Now that you are aware of these signs, the power is in your hands. Use this knowledge to protect yourself and foster healthier relationships. If you found any part of this message helpful, please like and comment to help the algorithm recommend it to someone who might need it right now. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any new videos, and feel free to browse through our past uploads. You're bound to find something valuable. Have a great day. 11. Lack of responsibility. Have you ever met someone who seems to have an excuse for everything? Imagine playing the game of life, but every time they land on a bad spot, instead of moving back, they blame the board or even the dog that walked by. That's how people who avoid taking responsibility behave. A lack of responsibility is like an escape artist's trick. These individuals can slip out of any difficult situation faster than a magician vanishing in a puff of smoke. They always have an excuse ready, as if they have an automatic justification generator in their mind. But why is this attitude so harmful? Think about building a house with someone who never admits to hammering in a crooked nail. In the end, you'll have a shaky structure and probably a lot of frustration. A lack of responsibility not only impacts the person who refuses to take it, but also everyone around them. It's like a virus that spreads through relationships, fostering an environment of distrust and resentment. How can you spot someone who avoids responsibility? Here are some signs. They always have an excuse ready. They blame others for their mistakes. They constantly see themselves as the victim. They change the subject when asked to take responsibility for their actions. If you know someone who often does these things, you might be dealing with a professional responsibility evader. But don't worry, not all is lost. If you recognize some of these behaviors in yourself, congratulations, recognition is the first step toward change. Remember, everyone makes mistakes. The key is in how we handle them. Responsibility is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So, the next time you're tempted to blame traffic for being late, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what can I do differently next time? 12. The pursuit of revenge or punishment. Have you ever met someone who can't let go of even the smallest slight? Today, we explore the final sign in our guide to identifying harmful individuals, the relentless pursuit of revenge or punishment. Imagine someone holding onto a grudge as if it were their most prized possession. These individuals struggle greatly with handling criticism or rejection. Instead of accepting feedback or respecting others' choices, they set out on a mission of retaliation that could rival an action movie plot. But be careful, It isn't always as obvious as a Hollywood villain. Sometimes it shows up in subtler ways, such as spreading rumors, sabotaging opportunities, or manipulating relationships. It's as if they have a radar for detecting offenses and an arsenal of negative responses ready to deploy. Interestingly, studies have shown that people who are vengeful often experience high levels of stress and low emotional well-being. It's like drinking poison and expecting it to harm the other person. The key to dealing with these individuals is to remain calm and avoid feeding their desire for conflict. Remember, their behavior reflects more about them than it does about you. Now that you are aware of these signs, the power is in your hands. Use this knowledge to protect yourself and foster healthier relationships. If you found any part of this message helpful, please like and comment to help the algorithm recommend it to someone who might need it right now. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any new videos, and feel free to browse through our past uploads. You're bound to find something valuable. Have a great day.